Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Today is Thursday, June 1st, 2023. It's actually my child's 16th birthday. So I took them out last night for a drive, and this was their final drive before they get their driver's license tomorrow. And it scared the you know what out of me. We were driving at night on an interstate in St. Louis. And so let's just say we're going to keep driving around town during the daylight hours for the foreseeable future. But, this is the excitement of being a parent and having kids grow older. So that's what's been going on. So today we're talking about, what's that?
We made our two boys drive 1,000 miles and record it in a log before we allowed them to go for their license.
No, we had 65 hours. I don't know how many miles that was, but I'll bet we were pretty darn close. 65 hours.
We found you can't get a lot of miles driving in cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, that's where we started, though. We started in the cul-de-sacs. Anyhow, all right, let's jump into the business plan presentation today. As usual, we meet every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central or noon Eastern. A lot of our folks are, or 9 a.m. Pacific. You can do the translation if you're in Hawaii or Alaska. We actually, my colleague Tom is in Alaska. He just arrived. He started last night or yesterday afternoon at 6. I guess that'd be evening at 6. And he said he's at the rental car counter right now. Poor guy, he's been traveling on it all night long. But today we are talking about business planning, and let's see here. I have a document that I'm going to share with everybody in the chat. If you are listening to this through the Zoom, I'm sorry, with YouTube, reach out to me and I'll make sure you get a copy of it. Put it right here and see if I can figure out how to put that into Zoom. Chat, there it is. Too many buttons. Okay, business plan template is in, and there you guys go. Anyway, so you'll see I'm going to be pulling that up and looking at that today. When you open it up, it should look like this. Gosh, sorry guys, I'm struggling to figure out how to make my computer work the way it's supposed to today. Where's that template? There it is. It will look like this. It should pop up and it should say doc because it's a template. This is the way I set it up, but you'll see it as it'll say doc. You have to save it. That way you can share it. That's the way we do it. And it's set up as a template, just like a total normal Microsoft Word document. But when you click on these things, you could replace your logo and put all these things in here. We're going to go through each of these sections. You're going to talk a little bit about your company, your niche, marketing and sales strategy, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the way this document's set up. Let's talk about why you want to do this. The reason is for the most part, you want to try and understand who you are, why you exist. Originally, people would do business plans, and originally most people do business plans because they want to secure funding from like a bank or an investor. For the most, I don't know much about how that works for us as independent consultants because I don't know many people who've secured a bank loan. I think we're going to hear a little bit about that perhaps in a couple of weeks when we're talking about buying and selling firms. I've never secured a bank loan for my firm with a business plan. I have like a line of credit. They didn't really need to see a business plan. They just needed to see that I owned a house and they could go after it or something. They just needed to see my credit. But the purpose of this document is effectively you need to understand who you are and where you're going. It's could be in place of a mission statement, or you'll probably have a mission statement, but it's kind of like an expanded idea of what you're doing with your business. For me, when I first started Goshen Education Consulting, I just needed to get my head around it because I was originally trying to set up a practice internal to a university. And I was going to create it through the university structure, but they didn't know what to do with me. So I decided to create a completely separate business. So I took a class on business planning. It was a day-long course. It wasn't a class, a day-long like workshop. And they showed us these things. But it helped me get my head around who I was, how I would set up a business, one that was profitable, because this whole idea of profit was brand new to me. And I needed to basically take this back to my spouse and say to my partner and say, we should do this, and I should quit my really nicely, I have this job that pays me well with insurance. I should quit that and go do this, and this is a good idea. And so I needed to be able to make that case. And so that's basically why I started with this document, but it becomes something that's foundational to who you are and what you want to be. I guess that's what I see here. There are things that you're going to put in the document, and if you're following along with this document online, if you've downloaded it and you're reading it, you want to think about who you want to serve, who's your niche. And all of these things are things we've talked about in previous core topics. But this is where you would place it. This is where you take it and you think about it and you reflect on it and you put it directly into a document for your own purposes and for the purposes of anybody you want to share it with. I talk about Ikigai. That's the Venn diagram of the overlapping circles. Oftentimes I talk about Collins' hedgehog concept. This is that plus the idea of what does the world need? So what are you good at? What do you enjoy? Which are often two different things. Hopefully they coincide. And where's their money to do these things? And what does the world need? So what is that niche? And if you're focused on that, that should be a self-sustaining business. Who are your customers? Where do they exist? What do they do? How do you interact with them? And that kind of comes into marketing. Who is your competition? It's really important for me. A lot of our competition are those psychology professors who say, "Oh, sure, I can do program evaluation. I know all about research, and I'll do it for $5,000." That's real competition for me, because those people end up taking business away from me, and they undervalue their services, and then they find themselves doing a terrible job. Not all of them, but some of them for sure. Why are you good at what you do? What did you do to get to this point that makes you successful, that makes you worthy of whatever it is that you want to build? And speaking of which, I think the next one might be finances. Nope, marketing and sales strategy. We'll get to finances next. What is your simple marketing message? We're redefining ours internally, but for the most part, we serve. If I run into somebody on the street, and this does happen, or the old kind of elevator pitch, we provide data services to schools and universities. And that's the simple piece. And then if somebody wants to know some more, I start talking about program evaluation, or I start talking about grant development, things like that. When you're thinking about your marketing, the thing that we've learned in the past is that a lot of our marketing, a lot of our new projects come from existing sources, either from an existing client or a connection with an existing client, or somebody through the networking that you've done. For me, it's there are grant writers out there who call me up and say, "Hey, I'm working with this new client. Do you want to take this project?" How do you develop that network? How do you connect with those people? When you do meet this person and you're creating a new connection, what do you share with them? Right? Hopefully it's more than just a business card. Connect with them, follow up with them with a resource. That's the kind of the old secret. When you meet somebody randomly at the gathering for beers on Thursdays or something like that, and somebody says, "Oh, I'm really interested in program evaluation services," you give them your business card and you take theirs, and then you follow up with them within 48 hours with a resource that they can use that shows you have something of value. When you're thinking about your marketing, what is your style? What is your logo? Where's your website? And this is the fees piece. When we're talking about finances, and you're putting all this into one document. Again, I'm just going through these things, but these are the things that you would put in your document. We've talked in the past about how you calculate your fees. There's a video on that. And in fact, in the follow-up to this video, when we put it out there, if you subscribe to this thing, I'll make sure we have a list of all of our core topics so you can go back and find all of this if you ever want to go reference any of these videos. When you start your business up, what are your startup expenses? If you're just now getting started, what is it going to cost you to get started? That's the little things like, what are those licenses that you'll have to have, like a business license? It's not that much. you'll need to buy a computer if you don't have one. Hypothetically, you have one, but you might need a better one, right? There's an initial expenses you're going to have. And then what's in your annual budget? Don't forget about insurance, like general liability insurance. I just spent another $700 for my employees when they rent cars on the road. My colleague who's in Alaska was sitting at the car rental counter, and I sent him the car rental insurance, so he needed to do that. He didn't spend 5 times as much at the counter because they scare you, you know. Anyway, those annual budget pieces. Are you going to pay yourself? I suggest it if you can. You probably should try to. But then if you have what are those other expenses that you're going to have? Don't forget like software subscriptions for whatever it is that you use. I spend a lot of money on Google for the Google team. I never expected to spend that much money, and I spend a lot. QuickBooks. Speaking of finances and fees, who's helping you with your accounting? Do you have assistants there? Do you have assistants in the way of lawyers? Do you have a line of credit? Which I suggest if you're in business and this is you are a solopreneur, you're fully dedicated to this, you're going to have peaks and valleys in your revenue cycle. If you can have savings, I suggest it, but I also suggest paying the couple $100s to have a line of credit. So for me, I have a $30,000 line of credit in case I need to tap into it. I also have savings. How much savings should you have? How much credit should you have? Why? Those are the sorts of things you might want to write in this document, explain it to yourself. This is really your own document for your own purposes, because you may or may not need to share it with anybody else, but it's your single local place that you can go to understand why you're doing things. Or if you need to transition this to another person who's coming in to work with you and they need to understand these things, or you want to share this with a lawyer, that's what you're doing here. Thinking about your operations, what kind of an organizational structure are you? A lot of you will start as a sole prop, but you may transition into an LLC or an S Corp, which is what we talked about at the last core topic 3 weeks ago. Do you have key performance indicators? Obviously, we want profitability, but I mean, what are things like percent of time on billable work? What's your win-loss rate? What do you want it to be? And why? I mean, because some people may have a very low win-loss rate, meaning they're not winning as many, but the ones they get are millions of dollars. So if you win one program every couple of years, that keeps you in business. That's great. Maybe a low win-loss rate is okay, but why do you have a win-loss rate like you do? Again, back to who are your advisors? You also may want to list contacts for your small business development center. You have a business coach, probably list out people like the ICTIG. Finally, you always want an exit strategy. You want to think about what happens if you need to exit. And it's not just because your business has gone out of business. Maybe you want to retire. What does retirement look like? Maybe can you sell your business? What does selling your business look like, right? A couple of the colleagues here have talked to me about this, and again, come back in, was it 2 or 3 weeks when we're going to be talking about buying and selling firms with Giovanni Lundquist and Patrice Steele. What does it look like to sell a business? But let's say your business is just not doing well. What does that look like? When is it for you? What does it look like to call it quits and go do something else? Or maybe your business is doing just fine and you want to go, you're tired of working alone. You need more people in your life. You want to water cooler conversations about whatever you just watched out on HBO. What does that look like? How do you do that? How do you transition your clients? Because you're likely still have contracts. For me anyway, I have contracts that are 5 years long. What are those additional liabilities to employees? You may actually, I've not done this, but I probably need to sit down and write out a document about what are my stages of firing an employee or letting an employee go. I haven't had to do that, but it's the sort of thing that I think about from time to time. Here's additional sections you may want to think about. Things in your logic model. Do you have a logic model for your business? A lot of us have logic models for our clients and we build them up for our businesses. Do you want to put any MOUs or contracts or templates in this document, or maybe list out where they might be? You have other standard operating procedures. I have all these things. I don't necessarily keep them with my with my plan, my business plan. We have these, it's kind of like the business plan is just expanded into a series of files. Do you have a plan for subcontracting? And if you do, share it with me, because I don't have a plan for subcontracting. This is like one of our weaknesses. We're not really great at subcontracting. Do you want to create the 5-year plan? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Maybe you don't want to create a 5-year plan. I've resisted it because it feels like things are happening so quickly, and I'm more just aware of what we're doing, but that's a personal choice. You also may want to include your CV or your resume. All right, a couple reflections. Actually, before we get to reflections, let's take a look at this business plan template, and I'll point them out here. These are you're going to see the same things. Hypothetically, you've been following along on your own screen with this. Again, things that you should know about this. When you want to type about your company, you click that. You can see it's highlighted. You could say Goshen. By the way, we're going to change the name of our company from Goshen Education Consulting to Goshen Consulting to further expand our offerings, because we've got more services that we're starting to provide that's outside of the classic education piece. So I would type education consulting, and I could go on about that. But the thing that's interesting is when you click this, it highlights it all, and you can just say, you can start typing things in there. We serve educational. Anyway, there's a little description in here, and these descriptions, as soon as you select it, it will go away, but it gives you a prompt. There are effectively prompts there for you. Here's the niche piece. Competition, remember, psychology professors. What's your marketing message? Put as much in or as little as you like in here. This is a strategy that Laura Keene put together for our workshops, talking about who you help, how you know what you know, what you do well, those sorts of things. Where are you going to meet people? Do you want to put things in here about your names, logos, and styles? What are your fees? You've got startup expenses, and you've got your regular budget. Organizational structure, how you measure your business, what's your KPIs, do you have professional assistants, additional sections, and then your exit strategy. It's pretty simple, but I think it's a tool to help you think through your process. Okay, let's talk about some of my key ideas here, reflections. So we do business planning because it gives directions to you, gives directions to your business, kind of grounds you. You might only have this privately, it's an internal document for your own purposes. It is a consolidated document too, that gives you kind of a piece where you go see everything. You're probably going to expand beyond just this document and not want to go back to the same document all the time, and you have like additional things like templates that you develop, but it's helpful. Sorry, I know you guys see my screen. It is living, or it could be living. I don't think that I've done a great job of keeping mine as a living document, but we're going to rewrite it soon. It's good reference as you go forward. I know that we actually continue, whereas we may change our 4 principles, we do have 4 principles that give us guidance. And it was kind of a surprise to me when my staff knew them and started citing them back to me, which is a really great sign. But to me, I was just kind of like, oh my God, this is awesome. Because the 4 pieces are locality, integrity, clarity, and sustainability. And those are things that give me guidance. It's given my staff guidance, and I think it reflects in our work. It also gives you a chance to describe yourself to others if you need to. Here's some of our upcoming sessions. So this is this week's June topic for business plan. Next week, Susan's going to take on a session about response fatigue and demand overload. Effectively, this is something that popped out of the IC, the Independent Consulting e-group chats, the one that you get as an email. And there's a lot of conversation about that a couple of weeks back. Susan has agreed to kind of facilitate that conversation. 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna talk about revenue mix. Why you might want some small projects, some large projects, some shorter term projects, some longer term projects. It really boils down to. Making sure that you're gonna be around in a while and you don't have any too many eggs in one basket. I've been talking about the buying and selling evaluation firms with Patrice Steele and Gamani Lundquist. And then June 29th, I'll be joining you from New Jersey, and I'll be talking about my 10.5 reasons why independence is awesome. That's also my 52nd birthday, so we'll get a chance to do that. And then you can see insurance is another cool topic in July. All right, everybody, let's see here. Stop sharing and stop the recording. Thanks, everyone. See everybody later.